I thought I'd use this unexpectedly drizzly, Seattle-y day here in Tampa to show you guys the ongoing progress with the revamping of the front yard that years ago used to be a formal collection of 170 roses. That's back when we got all the hurricanes and before the tap watering restrictions and before Mermaid, whose stump is right here. Mermaid, who supposedly can't do well here in Florida, before I cut her down in the spring, had completely blocked the view of the house and spanned from the house to the street, had suckered wildly like a blackberry, so I couldn't get in from that gate, and this hell was revealed when she came down. I'm focusing on the fact that I've now revamped that bed. I'm closing and unfinishing this bed. The middle bed is done, and then next I'll progress back to this new hell zone, recover the old beautiful limestone pond, uncover it, the pathways back there, and I'm keeping my eyes on the fact that I'm so close to the west fence, despite the squalor that was created by not being in here for a year and a half. This revamping of the yard is based on the fact that Tampa, South Tampa, is in perpetual drought, very severe water restrictions. Roses are thirsty, which is how I lost most of the 170. This rose here is Francois Gironvi, who I've now trained up 2 rebars. Francois is remarkably tolerant of the Tampa drought. The original plant was much larger but was also killed by Mermaid. This is a result of my finding a sucker when Mermaid came down and nursing it back. You'll see basil shoots emerging like crazy now that I fed it and we've had some rain. I give it some water. But the basic concept what I'm doing here is what I call water-wise container gardening. All I do, like in the case of this ballerina, is I take a 5 or a 7-gallon bucket. I use a 3/4 inch paddle bit to make the drainage holes about 3 inches from the bottom on the sides. No drainage holes on the bottom at all. And that results in a 3-inch damp zone as the rose colonize the pot. I then bury the pot to protect it from Florida's brutal sunlight. Plastic here gets brittle in like 2 years. And the reason for the paddle bit holes instead of, say, just a drill bit is when the rose gets root bound, they can escape, but at that point their escape route will be down deep, way far below the dry upper surface. This Baron Provot has been in the spot for about a month and a half. He's doing fine. In here I have Safrano. I have Fairmont Proserpine that I discovered in Fairmont Cemetery in '98. There's the Natchitoches yellow, that modern yellow from Texas, Cramoisi superior, and back there is a Moroccan rose that Mike Shoup donated. And speaking of that, I want to thank Mike Shoup again. He's given me many roses over the years, and he just donated an autumn damask to the project. This greenery in between here is arugula. Since I grow all my roses organically and probiotically, it's perfectly safe to grow food crops in between them. I'm not doing much watering, as usual, but I'm giving this bed obviously enough water for this arugula to thrive. I'm harvesting the arugula and I'm bartering with local restaurants for their kitchen scraps to feed my flock of chickens and ducks. So it's win-win. They get organic arugula. I get free food by driving just 3 blocks for my chickens. I may put one more rose back there to the right of Francois. I rather doubt it. What's going to be happening in here is I'm going to be having one rose probably about every 5 feet. Like here to this left of this pond that I'm now completing that was made from a camper shell thingy. I'm going to have one rose right there in the center, possibly Oklahoma on Fortuniana, possibly Abraham Darby, or possibly Francis Dubois. I'm probably going to put ballerina right where that bucket is. And then just, like I said, about every 5 feet, another containerized rose in a water-wise container garden buried, and basically follow the original arc of that path. Along the fence there, I just planted in a 7-gallon bucket a pink cracker rose, Florida's enigmatic mystery China rose that I've been trying to identify since '82. I personally agree with Joyce Dimmitt. It's probably Santa Rosa, maybe Burbank. I'm going to take down this old original 2x4 from when I first bought the house, replace it with rebar, and I'm going to train 2 climbers up here and across the top. In back there, outside the fence, you can see the teasing Georgia that I repillarized a few weeks ago. And in the ground, without being containerized, is a Belinda's Dream on Fortuniana. And then let's go out front here. This is the first rose I trialed in this method. about 18 months ago. It's a specimen of Red Door, which thrived in Tampa in the 90s before there was water restrictions. It was a guaranteed way of making my clients happy, but it's thirsty, and I kept losing it in the ground. So about 18 months ago, I took a 4-gallon bucket, and you can see the rim of it exposed back in there. Planted the Rev D'Or in the bucket. Same thing, the drainage holes are 3 inches from the bottom on the side. Buried it in this bed. I've got to recover that lip with mulch. Pounded in rebar, and as you can see, she's doing quite well. I love that apricot color, lots of buds. I just gave this rose and Teasing Georgia a nice nitrogen push. So I see a whole lot growth. Teasing Georgia has only been pillarized a couple weeks, and she's reclothing out with new foliage. And I'm expecting in probably about 6 weeks, she ought to be absolutely spectacular. Now this one is on Fortuniana in the ground. There's no bucket involved. And as you can see, she's doing very, very well. Nice thick canes. I do once a month set the sprinkler out here and give it a deep watering. And I also, a founding premise of how I grow roses, since I'm so obsessed with water conservation in Florida, because Florida has become such a dry state compared to when I was a kid here, is I save all my kitchen gray water. I have a 4-gallon bucket beneath the sink. I only use mild detergent, and I save all that. And periodically, Teasing Georgia will get a 5-gallon bucket of kitchen gray water. And also, in this old prototype container garden, this is Duchesse de Brabant. All this is a few years ago when I saw how the drought had ravaged my collection. I took a tree pot, I plugged up the drainage holes with used plastic grocery bags, filled it with soil, put in the rose, and she's done quite well. And that was the first inkling that there was a creative response to perennial drought. Same thing with this daylily. Daylilies here in Florida, the types that grow here, the evergreen, are very thirsty. And this one is planted in a buried 4-gallon bucket that hard-boiled eggs come in that a friend gives me. Let's go back to this bed because I want to talk about this application for perennials. This is a Louisiana iris I just planted in a buried 4-gallon bucket. I used a standard drill bit to make about 5 holes, 1/4 inch diameter or so. Again, on the sides, not the bottom, but since it's a swamp iris, I made the holes about 5 inches from the bottom. So there'll be a nice, wet, swampy soil zone in that bucket. There's another Louisiana iris over there I did the same thing with. And then here at the base of this rebar is a rose I bought from Michael Bronner in Boulder, Colorado. It's a mystery rose, a climber, once bloomer, called Walnut Street Yellow, that him and Eve discovered years ago on Walnut Street in, I think, Boulder, up near the foothills, as I recall. Most people who I've sent the pictures to agree it's almost for sure the old Wichuriana Primavera. I don't think the canes are too visible here, but I've had very good luck in Tampa with the Wichuriana ramblers, Gardenia, Francois Gironvie, Leontine Gervais, and I'm 99.9% sure that this is a Wichuriana. It's got that look, once bloomer in Colorado, and the blooms, when I sent the pictures to Adele Mascalier in France, she said it was a dead ringer for her La Primavera, I think is how you say it, or just maybe Primavera. Kind of a chiffon yellow, very double form. What I'm going to be doing next in this bed, and I'm doing my best since I tend to spread myself thin, is I'm trying to complete each bed before I spread into the next hell zone. I'm notorious, anybody will tell you, I'm ADD, and part of me wants to jump in there and take out that hell, and part of me says, no, this bed is largely finished, and it looks it. It's just a question of the plants maturing. This bed is finished, question of the plants maturing. There's a daylily there, Louisiana iris, again, in a buried bucket here. So I'm going to try to be disciplined, finish this bed with roses, and then proceed on to the center bed, which is behind the swing, and the fish pond bed. And there's a pink cracker rose that's reviving. It's one of the first roses I ever planted when I bought this place. It had been consumed by mermaid and weeds, and a mistake I made terribly. I bought a perennial morning glory called Ipomea, that's how you pronounce it, acuminata. I cannot emphasize enough, if you live in Florida, do not plant it. All this hellacious vine growth, almost all that you see, is this unspeakably rampant growth that thankfully was freeze killed by the 27-degree nights. But with Mermaid having kept me out of this yard, the Acuminata Morning Glory simply consumed this yard. I now see it as making kudzu look like a freaking African violet. Don't ever plant Epomia acuminata if you live in Florida. It's nightmarishly aggressive. So that's where we stand now. This bed probably is going to accommodate, I'm going to guess, maybe 8 to 10 more roses. And my first shipment just came from Chambly's, the first of 3 cases a couple days ago. Here they are sitting out in the rain. All en route, of course, a number of Austins, and I've got a whole bunch more coming in the 2 other cases. They're all going to go into buried buckets. As a rule, the roses are going to go either in a 5-gallon or increasingly the 7-gallon. Even though I have to dig a bigger hole to bury it to protect the plastic, that'll give it a bigger damp root zone, and I have a new source of the swimming pool buckets. I call this, again, water-wise container gardening, and this is pretty much my last hurrah to try to grow roses in very arid conditions in remarkably sandy soil. Roses here in Tampa, grown conventionally, require amounts of water that I consider obscene. As an environmentalist and as a Florida native who has seen my beloved state become desiccated the last 20 years, due, I believe, to global warming. There's the trunk of Mermaid, who helped destroy the collection. I'll probably post another report in a few weeks. I expect this bed to be done in about 2 weeks, and maybe I'll wait until the roses have fleshed out a bit. Then the next project, after I get those 2 hill beds, is to readdress this west bed that got consumed by that tropical perennial sunflower, Tithonia diversifolia, clear all this out. And again, there's a Newport ferry that is absolutely laughing at the drought. Unfortunately, the lack of dormancy in Tampa, it doesn't bloom much, but you can tell it is extraordinarily happy here. I want to train it back up onto the rebar, and then go ahead and fill this bed, the same thing with buried rose buckets, and turn this back into a really pleasant rose garden. Rosa bracteata, like Mermaid, has gotten out of hand, so I'm going to take it back to the original trunk, which you can see here, and have it back into more like an umbrella shape over the seating area, and never again let it get this big. This is actually reduced in size. I've pruned it heavily already, but I want to reduce it probably, oh gosh, another 75% and keep it that small. There's where we stand right now on this wonderful drizzly day in Tampa. I'm very hopeful about this approach, mainly because of the performance of these roses here. They've been in these buckets now for a few months. They are thriving despite the fact that I rarely water out here, and most of the water they do get is kitchen gray water. I'll keep you posted, y'all. Bye-bye.